Hello and welcome to All 24 Nightly News. I'm your host, Karim Zachary, and up next are the top stories. Niamey bans French aircrafts from its airspace, and France withdraws its ambassador and troops ending its military relations with Niger. Algeria prioritizes African solutions in upcoming UN Security Council membership. Also coming up, UN Libya mission urges political leaders for response and reconstruction past Hurricane Daniel, and Algerian rescue teams continue to scour for the missing. Also ahead, aggression in West Bank Palestinian camps escalates. 2 martyrs in Noor Shams camp, and Al-Aqsa Mosque is stormed by hundreds of settlers. Hello again, and thank you for joining our program. First off in our news, Algeria is actively working within the United Nations to advance its priorities during its upcoming non-permanent membership in the UN Security Council. This includes a strong focus on the rights of African peoples and their aspirations for development and stability. Here's Zahra Farjani with more.
Algerian Foreign Affairs Minister Ahmed Attaf defined on Sunday Algeria's priorities clearly for the upcoming non-permanent membership in the UN Security Council. This came during his participation in a ministerial meeting of the African Union Peace and Security Council within the United Nations headquarters. According to Minister Attaf, Algeria is committed to the principles of African solutions to African problems. During this encounter, he reaffirmed his country's commitment to make African voice heard and defend oppressed peoples, averting the state of polarization that reflects negatively on the efficiency of the UN Security Council in addressing the growing threats to international peace and security.
Let me reaffirm before you the strong commitment made by President Abdelmajid Tebboune himself that Algeria will spare no effort to strengthen the African voice within the Council. Our collective voice of wisdom and commitment is indeed badly needed in this critical and challenging global context to help bridge increasing divisions and overcome mounting polarization that heavily and negatively impact on the Council's effectiveness in addressing peace and security threats.
Algerian Foreign Affairs Minister brought forth African countries' efforts on a resolution from the United Nations Security Council that allows financing African Union peace support operation based on the United Nations budget. Hence, Algeria emphasized Africa's right to benefit from UN resources to finance peace and security efforts.
Algeria will remain deeply committed to the principle of African solutions to Africa's problems, which reflects the essence of today's debate on the financing of AU-led peace support operations. We believe that Africa has every right to have access to the UN-assessed contributions to fund its peace operations. We also believe that the collective security system will gain more efficiency and more effectiveness by enacting this long-awaited fundamental change.
Achieving these priorities during the upcoming non-permanent membership in the UN Security Council is Algeria's pressing objective, so as to formulate strong and fair positions for African peoples, their rights and aspiration to achieve sustainable development and stability.
In the same context, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf held bilateral meetings during the United Nations General Assembly's ministerial segment. He met with counterparts from countries including Azerbaijan, Jordan, Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, and Namibia, and also received the British Minister of State, Lord Tariq Mahmoud Ahmed. These meetings focused on strengthening bilateral ties and addressing current UN agenda items. Algerian Foreign Minister Mr. Attaf also discussed cooperation between Algeria and the African Union during the United Nations General Assembly's ministerial segment in New York. He held talks with Moussa Faki Mahamat, the chairman of the African Union Commission, and met with Bankole Adeoye, the African Union Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security. The discussions encompassed political and security developments across the continent, with specific attention to the Sahel region. The Algerian Monetary and Banking Council has endorsed a draft system outlining the criteria for licensing, establishment, accreditation, and operation of exchange offices. According to a statement from the Bank of Algeria, this initiative is designed to create favorable conditions conducive to the expansion of a comprehensive national network of these offices. The ultimate goal is to streamline currency exchange services for the general public's convenience. During his address at the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly, Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Lesotho urged the international community to support the self-determination rights of the Sahrawi people. He emphasized that it's crucial not to overlook the ongoing struggles of the Sahrawi and Palestinian populations who remain under oppressive conditions.
Excellencies, heads of state, and as we continue to ponder the most pressing issues and challenges facing the international community today, we should not forget the plight of Sahrawi and the Palestinian people who continue to live under oppression. Both the General Assembly and the Security Council have recognized their rights to self-determination and independence. Western Sahara should determine its own destiny and live in peace side by side with the Kingdom of Morocco.
Tunisian Foreign Minister Nabil Amar declared at the United Nations General Assembly that Tunisia rejects clandestine resettlement of undocumented migrants. He criticized the political and media exploitation of irregular migration and stressed the need for addressing its root causes, not just its consequences. Amar called on all parties, including source, transit, and destination countries, as well as regional and international organizations, to take responsibility in dealing with irregular migration.
وإذ نؤكد على ضرورة اعتماد مقاربة شاملة. We confirm the need to apply a general approach to deal with the issue of irregular migration based on eliminating its deep causes, not on treating its results. We once again stress that all parties, from source to transit countries, destination countries, and regional and international organizations, must bear their responsibility in this regard. Tunisia has always dealt with irregular migration with all its capabilities and with all responsibility starting from its unwavering support and respect to the UN, and we affirm that Tunisia will not accept the covert resettlement of irregular migrants.
To neighboring Libya now, the special representative of the UN Secretary General in Libya, Abdullah Bathili, emphasized the importance of East and West Libyan authorities collaborating on a joint assessment of immediate needs and reconstruction efforts. He called on political leaders to step up to the occasion and work together to mitigate the impacts of the recent tragedy. In his message, he extended solidarity to all regions affected by the floods, particularly in Derna and other cities in eastern Libya. 2 weeks following the devastating floods triggered by Hurricane Daniel in Libya, Algerian civil defense teams remain dedicated to the ongoing recovery efforts in the city of Derna. On Saturday, these Algerian rescue teams successfully retrieved 41 more bodies, bringing the total number of victims recovered to 242 since the commencement of the operation.
تتواصل عمليات البحث لفريق الحماية المدنية الجزائرية هنا بمدينة درنا الليبية.
Rescue operations of the Algerian civil protection teams continue here in the city of Derna. For today, the team of divers will be divided into two parts to work in the ports of Derna. Both teams will work on a boat to search for corpses on the shores of the city of Derna.
سواحل مدينة درنا الشرقية.
Still with the same file, the floods that inundated parts of eastern Libya resulted in significant damage and substantial losses in agricultural regions. Sousse Governorate, renowned for its rich agricultural production, was severely affected and transformed into mud-covered disaster zones. Here's Osama Ayadi with the full story.
12 days have gone by since the eastern regions of Libya were ravaged by one of the deadliest floods to ever hit the country for centuries. The country is now living in a appalling dire situation in the aftermath of the destruction it witnessed at many levels. At the eastern coast of Libya, scenes of devastation are overwhelming. Collapsing roads, destroyed homes, dead livestock, and inundated fields demonstrating the severity of the disaster Libya has gone through.
There are a big flood come from the mountains and bring these big rocks from the mountains, and there are families die right here, families lost right here. Water big like a big sea, like a big wave.
The scale of the destruction left by the violent storm is growing more and more apparent in people's lives. For instance, the city of Susa, once known for abundant agricultural crops, has become an underground city with an uncounted for corpses buried underneath.
Drinking water, the distillation is in bad situation right now. The pipes is destroyed. The pipes is losing. No water, no drink water in the city.
Just as farmers, dozens of other professionals in various vital sectors of endeavor are bearing heavy losses, the locals find it impossible to continue living here under these extraordinary circumstances, as it has become increasingly difficult to obtain basic life supplies such as drinking water. And to make things worse, the decomposing bodies and the damage of the wastewater treatment plant are raising great health concerns.
لا عندنا ماكل، لا عندنا ملبس، لا عندنا مشرب، لا عندنا شيء. تو في تعاطف.
People displaced by the floods have no food, no clothes, no money, nothing. For the moment, there is solidarity. But after a month or two, what will happen? That's what worries us. People are united for the moment. But after 3 months, what will become of these displaced people in 3 months? They will be indeed for at least 6 months. And this is the only first phase.
Truly, primary statistics indicate that the staggering 85% of agricultural lands in the eastern region were withered by the floods, exacerbating the amount of losses already witnessed at an astounding 90% of animal wealth, in addition to massive damage in infrastructure, according to international reports.
To other developments in the African continent, Malian Foreign Minister Abdoulaye Diop, speaking at the United Nations, cautioned against military intervention in Niger to restore constitutional order after a coup. As a representative of Mali's military leaders, he strongly opposed such intervention by ECOWAS, deeming it a direct threat to Mali and regional peace. Diop stressed Mali's aversion to becoming a battleground for foreign interest and underscored the need for a global, multilateral approach to address peace, security, and development challenges.
Mali remains strongly opposed to any military intervention by ECOWAS, which would have serious consequences for Niger and the entire region. And military intervention in Niger, or any aggression or any invasion of that country, would constitute a direct threat to the peace and security of Mali and the region, and it will necessarily entail dire consequences we will not stand idly by. In the current geopolitical context, Mali does not want to be a theater of confrontation or competition over foreign geopolitical interests. However, we stand ready to cooperate with all partners who respect our sovereignty. Many peace, security, and development challenges require a multilateral framework. It has been reformed, adapted, and inclusive. We can no longer do what we did before, using the same mechanisms and institutions that failed to adapt to the expectations of a new outcome.
In the same context, Niger's military leaders have restricted French aircraft from using their airspace, a decision conveyed through an official letter. While the airspace remains open for commercial flights, French aircraft, including Air France planes, are banned. Military and private flights are generally prohibited, except with special licenses. In response, French President Emmanuel Macron announced the termination of military cooperation with Niger, the withdrawal of French forces, and the recall of the French ambassador. Niger, for its part, welcomed the move.
la France a décidé de ramener son ambassadeur.
France has decided to bring back its ambassador, and so, in the coming hours, our ambassador with several diplomats will return to France, and we are ending our military cooperation with de facto authorities of Niger, because they no longer want to fight against terrorism.
During the UN General Assembly's 78th session, Burkina Faso's Minister of State Bassoul Mabazi voiced doubts about the international community's commitment to combating terrorism effectively. He criticized the influence of political agendas in regional counter-terrorism efforts and the insufficient financial support for previous African initiatives.
De sorte à, si la communauté internationale était honnête et sincère.
If the international community were honest and sincere in its fight to combat terrorism, it would have no problem with supporting populations training themselves to defend themselves. There is a clear lack of honesty in the international community. For example, when Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and other countries organized along their common borders by pooling their forces to combat terrorism, France came out of nowhere to impose their tool, which is the G5 Sahel.
In other development, thousands in Spain protested against a potential amnesty for Catalan separatists proposed by Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez as part of a government formation plan. The demonstrators, organized by the Conservative People's Party, led by opposition leader Alberto Núñez Feijóo, convened in Felipe II Square. Former Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy and José María Aznar joined the protest, deeming the anticipated amnesty unconstitutional and contrary to the rule of law.
Es falso, rotundamente falso.
It is false, completely false, that pro-independent parties have to play a key role in forming a government in Spain. In the last decades, they have never had so few votes. This is just another socialist lie. If in Spain there is a government supported by amnesty and equality, he would be very irresponsible.
To the Middle East now, 2 Palestinians lost their lives during a significant military operation by Zionist occupation forces in North Shams camp. They were fatally shot in the head during the assault, which also involved the use of bulldozers to destroy infrastructure and roads within the camp. Snipers were positioned on civilian homes' rooftops. The Palestinian presidency, for its part, condemned these daily killings across Palestine's governorates and accused the Zionist entity of waging an ongoing war against Palestinian civilians.
The Israeli occupation authorities are waging a continuous war against Palestinian people and their capabilities to implement their plans, which Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu announced in his speech before the United Nations in defiance of all resolutions of international legitimacy and international law, which affirmed the right of the Palestinian people to establish their independent Palestinian state with East Al-Quds as its capital. The occupation is striving to drag the region into the realm of violence and escalation through its continuous aggression, as well as calls by Jewish extremists to storm Al-Aqsa Mosque and storm Birzeit University, forgetting that the Palestinian people will not give up any of their legitimate rights, whatever the cost.
According to Palestinian news agency, fanatic Zionist settlers led by extremist Zionist Knesset member Yehuda Gleck stormed Al-Aqsa Mosque under the protection of Zionist police, who prevented Muslim worshippers from entering the mosque to secure the entry of Zionist settlers to perform their Talmudic rituals on the occasion of the so-called Jewish holiday. In Kosovo, an armed group of around 30 individuals armed with heavy weaponry, including grenades and RPGs, attacked a northern village, resulting in 1 police officer's death and 3 others wounded. During the confrontation, 3 attackers were killed. Prime Minister Albin Kurdi expressed uncertainty about the culprits and mentioned the group had taken refuge inside a monastery in Banyask village, urging their surrender.
As I stated earlier, the attacks on our police are ongoing. There are at least 30 heavily armed persons, professionals, military or police, who are located in proximity to our police forces and whom I invite to surrender to our security authorities. So there are at least 30 of these people.
In other news, ethnic Armenians are leaving Nagorno-Karabakh with Russian peacekeeping aid. Thousands have gone to Russian peacekeeper camps due to concerns of ethnic cleansing in Azerbaijan. Armenia's prime minister, for his part, offers refuge, but this influx may lead to a humanitarian crisis. Let's get more updates with Islam Said.
The operation of deporting ethnic Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh started on Sunday, as around 120,000 people are set to leave for Armenia, accompanied by Russian peacekeeping forces. Thousands of people were evacuated from cities and villages affected by the latest fighting and taken to a Russian peacekeepers camp in Nagorno-Karabakh. According to the leadership of the breakaway region, the families who became displaced as a result of the recent military operations do not want to live in Azerbaijan due to fears of ethnic cleansing, despite guarantees to protect their rights.
It was a nightmare. There are no words to describe. The village was heavily shelled. Almost no one is left in the village. Most people have been evacuated, and we are now here, thanks to God.
Amid the ongoing development, Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, speaking in a televised address, said that his country is ready to accept all ethnic Armenians of Karabakh, adding that the security blocs of which Armenia was a member were not effective.
The attacks launched by Azerbaijan against the Republic of Armenia in recent years lead to the obvious conclusion that external security systems in which we participate are not affected from the other point of view of the state interests and security of the Republic of Armenia.
So far, more than 377 Armenians refugees from Karabakh recently arrived to Armenia. The small South Caucasian country could face a humanitarian crisis due to the overwhelming number of refugees. It's worth recalling that the armed conflict started on Tuesday, and just a day later, a ceasefire was declared, pacifying concerns that the area would see a third major battle. The separatist leadership in Nagorno-Karabakh made the significant concessions as part of the deal negotiated by Russian peacekeeping forces. Talks between the parties started on Thursday in the Azerbaijani city of Yevlak, although the issue of Nagorno-Karabakh's ultimate status is still up for debate.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov criticized the United States and Europe for their approach in seeking support from developing countries. He mentioned Russia doesn't reject UN efforts to revive the Black Sea grain export agreement, but finds their latest proposal unrealistic. Lavrov also cited Russia's withdrawal from the Black Sea cereals initiative, citing unmet promises like lifting sanctions on a Russian bank and reconnecting it to the global SWIFT system.
The main reason why we left the agreement is that everything that was promised to us turned out to be a lie. I respect the efforts of the Secretary General, and I respect the efforts of Rebecca Greenspan, the Secretary General of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development.
Lavrov also dismissed Kiev's 10-point peace plan as impractical and suggested that if Ukraine and the West stick to it, the conflict would continue on the battlefield.
Zelensky and everybody who's governing him in Brussels, London, in one word, firmly say there is no basis for peace other than Zelensky format. No other basis for this exists. And this Zelensky blueprint can be described in different ways, but it's completely not feasible. It's not possible to implement this. It's not realistic.
More news making headlines around the globe in the News in Brief.
The Philippines on Sunday accused China's Coast Guard of installing a floating barrier in a disputed area in the South China Sea. Philippine Coast Guard spokesman Jay Taruela pointed out that the barrier prevents fishermen from reaching shallow waters and deprives them of fishing activities and livelihoods. North Korea leader Kim Jong-un pledged to strengthen cooperative relations with China in a letter he sent to Chinese President Xi Jinping. Kim indicated his belief that the friendly and cooperative relations between North Korea and China will develop steadily in accordance with the requirements of the new era. Somali authorities announced on Sunday that 21 people were killed and 52 others were injured in a car bomb explosion that targeted the security checkpoint in the center of the country on Saturday. Director of Disaster Management and Humanitarian Affairs, Abdel Fattah Mohamed Yusuf, stated that 17 injured people were suffering from serious wounds. So far, no party has claimed responsibility for the attack. USMLG's club came back home with a valuable draw from Morocco against Fatah Union Sport Rabat in the first leg of the second round of the African Confederation Cup. The match, which was heading towards a victory for the title holder, USMLG's, of the last edition of the CAF Cup, ended in a draw with a goal for each side, waiting for the second leg, which will be played next October in Oran.
The end of our program. Thank you for watching and goodbye for now.